Hello, my name's John Thorne from Thorne Motorsport, and this is another in our series of where we're comparing different McLaren models to each other. In this episode, I'm comparing a 570S to a 540S. Now, this is one of the more logical comparison videos to be done because the 540 is a bit of a weird one. It was created by McLaren for a specific market purpose, and it had lower power and lower price point, primarily for the Middle Eastern market, but it was released worldwide, as I've seen. And it represents the cheapest way of getting into McLaren ownership on a list price type basis. So if you go on a base of a death spec to death spec, so no carbon, nothing at all, the 540 is about £10,000 cheaper, and again, UK market for my international viewers, than a 570 would be. Now, simply on the list price of the car. Now, it's masked a bit from there because people look at them and don't realise what they're seeing, and they see a cheaper car. And so it's worthwhile going in comparison between the two. Now, first of all, the obvious one, 540's got 540 PS, the 570's got 570 PS, but it's minor. If you can tell a difference on the roads in those two cars, I'm impressed, okay? I back-to-back road test these cars day in, day out, and in normal road driving perspective, you are not going to feel a difference. So the 540 does represent a nice, good, cost-effective way into buying McLaren ownership, okay? However, when they first came out, everybody else saw that. They saw a cheap McLaren. So a lot of them got loaded with options. Okay, we've sold 540s at £88,000, £89,000 because they're dripping with carbon fibre and McLaren options, which are expensive. So it's a bit of a masked process, but generally like for like, 10 grand cheaper, taking that into account. However, with the carbon fibre and the options of paint, it gets together. So they are broadly similar prices to 570s, bear in mind the spec that they've got. Now, the obvious things about it, although not obvious things about it, it's actually quite hard to tell a difference between the two. Okay, now most people who know cars well will see it, but you've got to point it out. So for example, the main visual differences externally are that you have a slightly smaller front splitter, slightly smaller side deflectors, and that's it. They're exactly the same, just a lower splitter and the side pods at the side, etc. Also, they come on steels, whereas a 570 comes on ceramics as standard. Now again, you could add ceramics to a 540, so it does mask the values. And as another video I've covered, having steels is both a good and a bad thing. They're not as good as ceramics as a function, but they're much, much cheaper to replace, like a tenth of the price. So it's worthwhile thinking about that. So the 540 for me would be the ultimate track day car for cheap getting in. And when I bought my 570, I tried to buy a 540, but couldn't find one that was cheaper than the old 570 I bought. So it's that kind of good donor car for that purpose. It's quite a cost-effective way in. And in terms of performance, exactly the same as a 570. Now again, from the modification side, which is not covered in most of the videos, you can map a 540 straight back up to 570 levels of power. So it is a good way of getting into it. There is no difference longevity in the engines and the gearboxes and the brakes, suspension, all exactly the same. The tub's the same, the bodywork's the same. So you still have the same issues of cracked hinges and corroded cracked manifold tabs and corrosion on the bodywork, but they all have those. So it means that the 540 arguably could be a nice cheap way into a car depending on its spec. Again, the values are masked a little bit because there's not many of them. They really are quite a rare car. Like I said, I tried to buy one, I couldn't find one. So we do have sold a few of them. But give an example. So from a visual perspective, they're hard to tell apart. And the average person on the street wouldn't know what you're talking about when you say one to the other. Maybe the McLaren aficionados would know it and spot them from here. But it may be a good opportunity coming into it. So if you can find a nice one, especially a low spec one, you will get in quite a low price. We've sold two 540s, one for 72 and one for 73,000. Yeah, you're talking about a 200 mile an hour supercar for 70,000 quid. That's pretty good. And again, a lot of them change things on. We've got a couple of 540s here. They've had big body kits gone on. You can't tell what it is. It could be a 600 LT for you know. So on the visual side, it can be changed if need be. But in terms of comparison model to model, it's a good way into McLaren ownership if you get a right one. They're no better or worse. And in terms of performance, it's exactly the same car. Okay, hope it's useful. Again, hit the bell, subscribe, that kind of stuff. Any comments you got, anyone to compare, please let us know. We're happy to help. Cheers.